In this episode of Motorsport Recently, we look back at the Canadian Grand Prix and the Texas 600. Are Red Bull going to start using Honda engines in 2019? And could McLaren make a full Indycar return? This is Triple Crown Racing, let's get into it. So after the snooze fest that was the Monaco Grand Prix, we were all hoping for something better in Canada, and unfortunately it didn't deliver in the best way possible. The race was pretty interesting, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't so much on-track action that defined this race, but more strategy. Anyway, Sebastian Vettel was on pole, followed by Mercedes man Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen, who had gotten a bit angry with the press. And by a bit angry, I mean he said he was going to headbutt the next person who asked him about crashing.
I think if I get a few more, I'll headbutt someone.
Make sure you don't cut yourself on all that edge, Max. Disappointingly for Canadian F1 fans, Lance Stroll started all the way back in 17th. Ouch. The race got underway and Lance Stroll's disappointing qualifying result didn't matter anymore, because he crashed almost immediately with Toro Rosso driver Brendan Hartley. So that was that. Also, Sergio Perez went full initial D on lap 5. Also, Charles Leclerc, not Leclerc Crofty, constantly amazes me whenever he gets near Alonso on track. He can hold him off in a car that's not all that great. We saw this happening on lap 9 when Alonso and Leclerc had a small battle. I'd say Leclerc is like the Robert Wickens of Formula 1. He can do good things with not an awful lot, which is pretty impressive. Like I said before, the war was mainly waged in the pits. Lewis Hamilton pit on lap 16, but the overcut strategy proved to be dominant. Daniel Ricciardo, Valtteri Bottas and Sebastian Vettel all pit later than Hamilton, and as a result did better in the race. Ricciardo pit on lap 17, while Bottas and Vettel stayed all the way out until lap 36 and 37. But after the pit stops, the front of the field stayed pretty much the same, which in this case is a good thing, because the checkered flag was actually waved early, and the race was technically shortened to 68 laps. To my knowledge, nobody changed positions in the closing 2 laps of the race, which is a good thing, because we wouldn't want anyone to get screwed over by that sort of thing. Vettel came home to win the race, followed by Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen, with Vettel's closest rival, Lewis Hamilton, all the way down in 5th place. Because of this, Lewis Hamilton has now lost the lead of the championship to Vettel by 1 point. So basically now, all motorsport is being put on hold for Le Mans, so the next F1 race will be the week after Le Mans for the French Grand Prix at Circuit Paul Ricard. The next race should be pretty interesting as the championship fight is very much on. In other news, more light has been shed on Red Bull's engine situation. Renault have essentially given Red Bull an ultimatum saying that they need to make a decision between staying with Renault or using Honda next year before the French Grand Prix. Red Bull originally wanted to compare both manufacturers at the Canadian, French and Austrian Grand Prix, but Renault are no longer waiting for an answer. When Cyril Abiteboul was asked if he was going to wait for Red Bull to make a decision, he said he didn't think so. It doesn't seem that Red Bull really want to deal with this, and when Helmut Marko was asked if he was going to give Abiteboul an answer, he told Motorsport.com that he won't get it. So if Renault are pressuring Red Bull for an answer, and Red Bull are not going to give them an answer before Renault's deadline, then that probably means no deal is going to be made between Red Bull and Renault. If neither budge, that means Red Bull will most likely go to Honda. What will this mean for the team? Honda are doing a lot better this year than 2017. Pierre Gasly already has more points now than Alonso had all of last year. Most of us have now established that it was not Honda's fault for McLaren's lack of success, but it was McLaren themselves. I believe that Red Bull will be able to work well with the Honda engine and make it work as they have been doing with Renault over the past 4 years, finding performance in engines that are not the greatest. Only time will tell. Who knows, maybe Red Bull and Renault will work things out. But I'd also be very interested to see what would happen if Red Bull went to Honda engines for 2019. Perhaps a Red Bull-Honda deal would be the missing piece that Honda needs for a successful return to Formula 1. Anyway, there is a link to a motorsport.com article in the description with more information, so you can check that out if you please. We had a complete change of setting in the Verizon Indycar series. We went from the bumpy street circuit in the Motor City to the high banks of Texas Motor Speedway. Last year, the Indycar community was divided over last year's race. Some people loved the Demolition Derby action, while others completely hated it. I'm somewhere in the middle because I like good racing, but I'm also a child who, like most people, only started watching racing for the crashes. It was fun. This year we were expecting more of the same because the new cars have way less downforce and are a lot harder to control. Also, Texas saw the introduction of the Watch Your Cooking section, which I actually quite enjoyed. The Penske started 1, 2, and 3, followed by rookie sensation Robert Wickens. Yes, go Wickens. I'm happy. Anyway, the race got underway, and it was kind of an anticlimax from the start, which is a good thing because I didn't want the whole field to blow itself to pieces right from the start. There were some drivers who started carving their way through the field right from the get-go, one of which was Alexander Rossi, who went from 8th at the start of the race to challenging for 3rd and 4th by lap 6. What was really impressive was Robert Wickens challenging Will Power for position at the start of the race. On lap 7, we all made a mess of our pants as Matthias Lace's car burst into flames and was scarily close to actually burning him. He was okay though, which myself and everyone else were really glad to see. The Penskes were managing to hold off Rossi and Wickens, but as the night wore on came tyre wear, and the Penskes suffered. Their tyres essentially ripped themselves to shreds and they were really struggling. Rossi and Wickens got past them. The race continued, and after the pit stops, the Penskes were still in the top 3. Then came Robert Wickens and put them all to shame, who overtook them like an absolute legend. This is a driver who hardly has any experience on a high bank oval. Scott Dixon, as usual, executed his pit stop strategy perfectly and made his way to the front of the field, and also took the fight to the Penskes along with Wickens and Rossi. Like I said before, tyre wear was a huge issue for the Penskes, and as a result, their race fell apart. When Simon Pagenaud came into the pit, you could see these weird-looking grooves had worn into the tyres. Same with Newgarden. It looked like the F1 tyres from the 2000s. It was insane. So 2 of my favourite drivers were in the top 3. Fantastic. Robert Wickens was doing great, and this... Oh. Well, that sucks. Someone give Wickens some luck. He's good, yet stuff like this happens to him all the time. Well, like Power, he's still in the... Oh. Well, the race restarted. It was Dixon followed by Pagenaud and Rossi. While Rossi and Pagenaud had a ding-dong battle in the closing stages of the race, Scott Dixon came home to win the Texas 600 and take the lead of the point standings, and he took 3rd on the all-time IndyCar win list. In the wake of the Texas 600, we got some of the most interesting news of the year. McLaren are having serious considerations about entering IndyCar full-time in 2019. McLaren Racing CEO Zach Brown told Motorsport.com that, "We're seriously considering IndyCar. We've been doing some due diligence for quite some time." Alonso is also having serious considerations at moving to IndyCar in 2019. These past few years in Formula One have been difficult for Fernando Alonso, as just about everyone in the Formula One community knows. He participated in the Indy 500 last year, and he clearly loved the whole experience. He also did very well, and proved that he was no slouch at oval racing. With McLaren very possibly entering IndyCar, it is highly possible Alonso could join them. When asked, Zach Brown said, "We're in talks with Fernando. It was about this time last year we started having conversations." McLaren have also been in IndyCar before during the 70s and also in the 2017 500, so they are no strangers to the sport, and a few people in McLaren have also touched on the benefits of entering IndyCar, so an IndyCar entry isn't all that unlikely. People in the IndyCar community would want Alonso, as it would mean ratings would go up, and that would be good for everyone involved in the sport. These ratings would come from the F1 fans who only watched the 2017 500 because Alonso was in it. You know who you are. Regardless, I'd love to see McLaren return to IndyCar with or without Alonso. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of Motorsport Recently. Like I said in the last episode, none of the footage is mine. Like last time, all the links to the channels that I borrowed from will be in the description below. I also used some quotes in this episode as well. The articles where I got the quotes from are going to be in the description as well. At the time of recording this episode, the Le Mans 24 Hours hasn't happened yet. It's actually about to start. So, I can't obviously include it, but it will have a video all to itself. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.